When the second generation Infiniti QX60 was first launched, it was met with a lot of praise for its striking road presence, new technology, and 9-speed automatic transmission that paired up very well with the V6. In fact, it was a great value proposition, and I think a great alternative to its closest rivals. In fact, Infiniti had one of its best years in sales for the QX60 in recent memory in 2023. But here we are in 2024, and Infiniti made some major changes once again, or rather, one change, and that is what's found under the hood, and this could be very controversial, but I'm excited being a car reviewer because I want to see what this new engine has to offer and how it pairs up with this model. In today's video, we're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and see why going with an Infiniti QX60 at around $60,000 might be a great choice. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Infiniti of Norwood and Adam, who's the general manager, for letting me come down here to check out the new QX60. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Infiniti inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. The model of today is the Luxe trim, coming in at just under $57,000, sitting between the Pure and Sensory in the lineup. It's actually a lower tier trim for 2025, but as we're going to find out throughout this video, it is very well equipped. Now, there are some additional packages and features that we do have on our model that I want to bring up. One being all-wheel drive. That is an additional $2,000. If you don't want that or need that, front-wheel drive does come standard for the Luxe, but all-wheel drive is standard for the Autograph. Also on our model, as you probably already have seen, we do have the Black Edition package for around $2,000 as well, giving us a nice lower profile appearance, but also a sportier and striking road presence that you definitely want to have in a luxury vehicle such as this. Now, before I get into the overall design and the aesthetics of this crossover, I do want to mention that for 2025, this is not even a mid-cycle refresh. The only major difference here is what you have under the hood. So in regards to tech features, in regards to comfort features, and just even the overall size and dimensions of this crossover, nothing is new at all. However, there are some upgrades that you can make even for the Luxe trim that I think definitely go a long way, because you can go with adaptive lighting for the front end, and that is going to be great if you are out late at night and you want to have that better visibility. But since we are talking about the front fascia, might as well go over what the Black Edition package actually offers for $2,000. So with that grille design, typically for Infiniti, it would be outlined by chrome accents, but with the Black Edition package, it becomes gloss black. That will match the 20-inch gloss black wheels, the gloss black side mirror caps, gloss black roof rails and crossbars, and gloss black badging. Now, on a different color, it would look super sleek and low profile, but also, in my opinion, rather sinister, because on top of that, you also have the gloss black origami front grille, and you also have the grille design for the side vents, which are not functional. It just pairs up very well with the overall design of the QX60. Now, also up front, you will have full LED headlights for better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions. What I also find rather interesting and appealing for a vehicle that does have the Luxe trim badge, but also for a vehicle under $60,000, the side mirror caps are power folding, which you don't typically find for a vehicle on the lower end in the trim lineup. So I'm glad to see that Infiniti is incorporating that for 2025. As always, you will have blind spot detection. Also, you will have turn signal indicators mounted on those side mirror caps. Then as you make your way around to the back, you are going to notice the chrome accents that outline the windows. Nice classy touch, nice upscale look for a vehicle such as this. But then as you take a look at the rear fascia, nothing is new aside from the gloss black badging, but tucked beneath the bumper will be dual exhaust outlets for a nice sporty appearance on our model today. Under the hood for 2025, and this can be seen as an addition or subtraction depending on how you look at it and what you're looking for in your new Infiniti QX60, you are going to have a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 268 horsepower and 286 pound-feet of torque. This does sadly replace the V6 found in last year's model. This is all in the name of being fuel efficient, but also falling in line with the regulations that are only going to get stricter as time goes on. We saw that with Lexus last year with the RX 350, was drop the V6 for a Turbo 4. Now, one thing that does carry over from last year is the 9-speed automatic transmission, so no CVT and no changes to that transmission, which I know some of you are definitely going to appreciate. But in regards to fuel efficiency though, you're looking at right around 22 miles per gallon in the city and 27 miles per gallon on the highway. That is a marginal increase from the V6 from last year, but Is it going to be noticeable? Probably not at all. But what will be noticeable is the straight line speed. So for 2025 with this Turbo 4, 0 to 60 times come in at around 7 seconds. Whereas last year with the V6, it was quicker at around 6.5 seconds. So there is going to be a bit of a difference, especially off the line. But with the Turbo 4, and we're going to notice this later on when we take this vehicle out for a test drive, is that there will be better mid-range torque. And before we check out the interior for 2025 for the QX60, we do get a new key fob with remote start, even for the Luxe trim. Not bad at all. Then stepping inside the Luxe, you're greeted by a long list of standard equipment that, in my mind, makes this the go-to. I know Car and Driver and a few other auto reviewers have said that going with a Sensory would be the better choice. But for a vehicle under $60,000 to start, whether you go with the Black Edition or not, you're receiving a lot here for a vehicle that is near the lower end of the trim levels for 2025. And just in regards to the technology, the creature comforts, but also the overall features, this really could be a great value. So let's first start off with these seats. They're power adjustable, heated and ventilated with leather upholstery, with the driver's side having 2-position memory for added convenience. But on top of that, the steering wheel also has power adjustability and memory positioning, which is a nice convenience feature to have. Now, these seats are not aggressively bolstered, as I've already experienced so far driving to this location today, where you will be swaying around a bit because the bolstering isn't too aggressive. So when you are on a winding back road, you're not going to have a sports crossover experience. However, in regards to comfort, these seats are really nice. And of course, with them having leather upholstery, it's going to feel very premium when you do hop in for the first time. Now, just like I said with the QX80 a couple weeks ago, what Infiniti does really well is interior quality and interior refinement. They have done a fantastic job with just the design of the dashboard in general. So you are going to notice that the dashboard does wrap around you with a wide center console. Also on the dashboard itself, soft touch materials, leather stitched, and also that translates to the door panels as well. Everything feels really high quality. And for a vehicle that isn't a German or European manufacturer, I think this does go a long way, because even in regards to pricing, it does undercut its European counterparts. Then taking a look in front of you, you are going to have a full digital gauge cluster. Always great to see in this market. And by using the dial and buttons on the left side of the steering wheel, you can scroll through a variety of information, but also customize this display to your liking with 2 different layouts. You can go with more of a futuristic look, where those gauges are a bit more circular, or you can go with the traditional layout that gives you more of an analog look, which I think some of you are going to love and choose that option over the more futuristic style. You can also scroll through your driver assistance features, such as lane assist, blind spot detection, and also emergency braking, which most likely you'll be keeping all of these features on for peace of mind when you are driving on a daily basis. Also on the steering wheel, you will find some paddle shifters, so if you want to engage that 9-speed automatic transmission, you can do so in sport mode and maybe have a bit more of an exhilarating driving experience. Optional but not equipped on our model today, you can get a head-up display, and that might be a go-to option, especially if you want to have some of that extra technology that you might find in some vehicles at around $60,000. Then quickly taking a look at the infotainment system, nothing new here for 2025. So same head unit design, same technology, same layout, same center stack and center console. So nothing is new or different compared to what you had a couple of years ago for the 2023 QX60 or 2024. However, there is one feature that Infiniti kept for this model that I love to see in any vehicle in this segment, and that is a dial and quick access buttons on the center console that gives you dual functionality. So if you don't want to reach for the head unit, you don't have to. A lot of manufacturers are moving away from this. They're moving away from physical buttons and physical dials to have more of a buttonless layout, but having it be more simplified. And because of that, you have all your climate control settings on the screens. It's just not easy to use or intuitive. However, with the Infiniti QX60, you have more of a traditional layout. So first, with this head unit itself, you are going to notice quick access icons below for your info, audio, your navigation map, Bluetooth connectivity, and your settings tab. Also, of course, you will have that home screen icon as well. You're going to have wireless Apple CarPlay, but Android Auto isn't wireless, and that will pair up with your wireless phone charging pad on the center console. Now with the screen itself, you are going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory, but also a top view camera. And that is great to see in this market and for a Luxe trim. So I'm glad to see that Infiniti is starting to throw in a lot of technology and features that you would have found on higher trims last year or in prior model years. And for some icing on the cake with this head unit, you are going to have the 17-speaker Bose Performance audio system, which does come standard for the Luxe trim for 2025. Then as you make your way towards the center console, you will find the physical dials for the dual zone climate control up front and the volume. However, tuning and seeking for different tracks, that's all haptic feedback, along with your climate controls for the rear seats, also your 2 double heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, AC, fan direction, and fan speed. So that is all haptic feedback that is trendy, and we're seeing a lot of that now in the automotive industry. Then for the center console itself, next to your wireless phone charging pad will be your gear selector, your start stop button, then of course your drive mode selector for personal, sport, auto, eco, and snow. You're also going to find your auto start stop button here, and then as we previously mentioned, your dial and quick access buttons, which will be next to your electronic parking brake and auto vehicle hold. You will find 2 cup holders as always up front. Then for the center storage compartment, you're going to have plenty of room for some smaller items, such as a couple smartphones, maybe even some other gadgets as well, and there will be a 12-volt outlet. Then to round out the front seating area, above will be a panoramic moonroof, and that is standard for the Luxe, and again, a nice feature to have for a luxury crossover such as this. Then moving on to the second row for the QX60, passengers will be greeted by a lot of interior space for both legroom, shoulder room, and headroom. In regards to the legroom, it comes in around 37.7 inches, which is better than the Lexus RX 350. Now I know some people are going to say, but Mike, there's only a 2-row crossover now. This goes head to head with the Lexus TX. As I've already talked about, there's a few reasons why I don't think this is a direct competitor to that larger TX. The TX is 6 inches longer, so obviously there's going to be a lot more legroom for passengers in the second row and third row. I consider that to be in a completely different class, but that's just me. In regards to vehicles in this segment traditionally, such as the Acura MDX, the BMW X5, or the Mercedes-Benz GLE, this would be on par with all 3 of those vehicles. So if you do have a larger family, I think everyone should be comfortable in this vehicle, because I adjusted this seat most of the way back in front of me, and I still have a good amount of legroom. I don't feel cramped or claustrophobic. Also, plenty of headroom as well, even with the panoramic moonroof. And then shoulder room isn't too bad at all with these bench seats. And better yet, the floor is completely flat, so you can definitely fit a third person in the center. Now, just like a lot of vehicles in this market with a third row, the second row seats do slide on rails both forwards and backwards to maximize legroom for passengers in the second row, but also to help out passengers in the back if you do have a larger family, which we will see how that plays out in a few minutes. Passengers will also have rear sunshades, which blocks out the haters, but also blocks out the sunlight on a very bright and sunny day like today. So if you are on your laptop or maybe your iPad, that sunlight won't be gleaming down on you. Better yet, back here, and this is a Luxe trim, remember. I mean, we've already gone over the features up front, but for the second row, this is actually pretty impressive. You are going to have heated outboard seats, and that is standard for the Luxe. You're also going to have climate control as well. So 3-zone climate control in a lower tier trim for the QX60. This is fantastic for a vehicle that starts under $60,000. You also got a USB-C and USB input. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. And then finally for the third row, hopefully you guys can see me back here. Let's be honest, this isn't going to be great for someone over the height of, say, 5'9", 5'10". I mean, they're going to feel cramped and claustrophobic. But for a smaller family, this definitely works. Also, one thing to keep in mind here, too, is that with the QX60, it's a 7-passenger vehicle. So there's not going to be a person in the center seat. And you have plenty of shoulder room. It's not going to feel claustrophobic in that regard. Also, headroom really isn't that bad for me either. Even though I'm not the tallest person out there, I don't feel too cramped or squished. Also, these seats aren't too bad. They've got a decent amount of cushioning and support, and at least I'm not sitting in a complete ball here like I have experienced in other manufacturers and other 3-row crossovers in this price range. As expected, there will be 2 cup holders on both sides of the third row. However, only on the right side will be a USB input. Then as you make your way around to the back for 2025, nothing is different here in regards to interior and exterior dimensions. So you're not going to notice any difference in regards to overall practicality. But if you are new here for the Infiniti QX60 and you want to know what is going to be offered, we're going to check out the cargo area for you guys. So you are going to have a power liftgate with the Luxe trim. And inside behind the third row seats, you're looking at right around 14.5 cubic feet of room. Personally, I always like having a vehicle closer to 20 cubic feet behind the third row seats, just because if I want to have all my camera gear with me, I want everything to fit behind those third row seats. Interestingly enough though, for 14.5 cubic feet of room, I was able to fit everything. That's 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. And I could still stack on more items if I had more camera equipment with me today. So I think that if you are going on a quick road trip or you're going grocery shopping, you can fit everything back here no problem, even if your kids are in the third row. Then with the third row seats folded, you're looking at right around 41.5 cubic feet of room, and that's very competitive in this market for a 3-row crossover. So if you're just using this vehicle as a 2-row vehicle, you're gonna have plenty of cargo space and no issues at all if you are going on a road trip with the family. And then finally, with the second row seats folded in total, you have right around 75.5 cubic feet of room. Again, falls right in line with its closest competitors, and I still think the QX60 is a practical option in this market at around 60 grand. And then for those of you wondering where's the spare tire, because it's not going to be found underneath the floor mat, that is tucked beneath the QX60. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And now that we've gone over everything, let's take the Infiniti QX60 out for a quick test drive to see how it performs. We all know why we are here. It's to check out this new turbocharged 4-cylinder engine for the Infiniti QX60. This really is the major change, and what has drawn me to this vehicle once again to review and to experience. I want to see how it compares to the V6 that I had featured a couple of years ago, but also to see how it compares to the Lexus RX 350 and other vehicles in this market. Well, I know a number of you are going to be saying, Mike, why do you keep bringing up the Lexus RX 350? It's not in the same class because it's only a 2-row crossover. I actually disagree, because the Lexus TX is 6 inches longer than the QX60. That's hardly being in the same class. And when you are comparing this to rivals like the BMW X5 and Mercedes-Benz GLE, those vehicles are often purchased as 2-row crossovers. So I think it's a fair comparison, and I think that we can easily compare this vehicle to that Lexus RX 350. I've taken the Infiniti QX60 to the Blue Hills today to see what this powertrain is all about, but also really to experience the handling and cornering ability. Obviously, the QX60 is a bit more one-dimensional, being a luxury crossover rather than all-out performance and being a vehicle that could go head-to-head theoretically with an X5 M50 or GLE 53. But as a luxury crossover, it's quite smooth, and in fact, it exhibits everything that I like about Infiniti products, where you have the softer touch materials on the dashboard, very comfortable seats, but also the suspension is tuned for comfort and leisure, and it's going to make this vehicle quite an enjoyable daily driver and commuter vehicle, and more importantly, maybe even a great road trip crossover. Getting back on these amazing back roads just outside of Boston, the QX60 does handle them quite well. You have a nice firm and weighted steering that's not typically found in a lot of Japanese manufacturers, because with Lexus, it's a bit vague and a bit too loose for my liking. However, with the softer suspension, there is a lot of body roll, and I'm kind of swaying around a bit in these seats. And that's not too much of a surprise, it's not really much of a takeaway, because, well, this is a luxury crossover after all. You're not going to be taking this out on some track somewhere or some winding back roads and putting it through its paces. So obviously you're going to be taking it a bit slower in the corners. But I will say though, it's more than competent and capable. But getting to this 4-cylinder engine, I have to say, I genuinely miss the V6. And I'm not saying that because of the sound. I'm not saying that because I'm an enthusiast, because a lot of journalists preface that they're enthusiasts and that they prefer larger engines. It's not that. I'm speaking as a consumer, as a car buyer. The Turbo 4 is a bit more lethargic, and it's a bit more lagging when you're accelerating off the line, as I'm about to demonstrate right here. You immediately notice the turbo lag, and torque doesn't kick in till you're around 3,000 RPM. And while as a daily driver and just cruising along on some winding back roads, that's more than fine, and this turbo doesn't drone. You don't really get a lot of that noise entering the cabin. When you're accelerating on highways, passing slower drivers, you're really trying to get as much maximum power out of this engine as possible, and it just isn't there initially. It kicks in once you get to that 3,000 RPM, once you get to mid-range, but off the line, it is rather slow. And when it comes to the 0 to 60 times, as we already talked about earlier on, it's more than anecdotal. It's more than just being one of those situations where it's like, oh, you know, it's 0.2 of a second slower. Am I really going to feel that? No, you do feel that this is a half second to maybe just over a half second slower compared to the V6 last year. However, a lot of buyers who choose the Infiniti QX60 aren't focused on performance. Let's be real here. I mean, if they were, they'd probably be going from inline sixes, V6s, or a vehicle with a sports unit suspension. As a luxury crossover, comparing it to its closest rivals, such as the Lexus RX 350, the Acura MDX, this is suitable for someone in the $50,000 to $60,000 price range, which is why I think the Luxe trim is the way to go. Just the amount of features you have here to work with, I think it's a great value. As a performance crossover, or just in regards to straight line speed, handling, and cornering, that's where the Infiniti QX60 showcases that it's primarily a luxury crossover and not much else. While it is more than competent, more than capable, and somewhat well-rounded, I will say the V6 was a better engine choice for this vehicle. But the reason why I'm harping on the Turbo 4 is because this is a fantastic vehicle in every other metric. Even with the 20-inch wheels, it glides over the roadways. It's very comfortable, and typically with larger tires, you're going to notice the bumps and imperfections. You're also going to notice more road noise, and you don't get that. The interior insulation is top-notch. I've noticed that I feel very isolated in this cabin, and that's exactly what you want out of a crossover at $60,000. More importantly, for the handling and cornering ability, it handles the sharp bends and twists in a road very well. And it's a very docile vehicle. The 9-speed automatic transmission shifts very smoothly. In fact, when you're not on throttle going 8 or 9/10, you barely feel those gear shifts. It's a very luxurious crossover in its own way. Also, I love the interior layout of this vehicle. The fact you have a nice large infotainment system, full digital gauge cluster, and nice center stack as well. Plenty of shoulder room up front. Visibility, there's plenty of it. The A-pillars are not too aggressive, so I don't think you'll be having any blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. The side mirrors are decently sized, so I can see what's in my blind spots. And then looking out back, I have lowered the third row seats during this test drive, and I can see what's directly behind me. So it's a very family-friendly crossover and a great daily driver. Now, because we do have a slower driver in front of us, and this is the way it's been all day, I'll be able to test out how we can merge onto the highway here with this Turbo 4. I'm going to place it in sport mode. Going to need that throttle response. When rolling and being in that mid-range, it takes off. This is a vehicle that performs very well while you're rolling, not so much when you're at a dead stop. And that's somewhat of the polar opposite effect that you had with the V6. The V6 was pretty powerful on the low end, relatively speaking, whereas the Turbo 4, like most Turbo 4s, you have to be in that mid-range. You have to be in that RPM range that you can experience the full max power through horsepower and pound-feet of torque. At highway speeds, it feels pretty composed on the roadways. Like I said before, the suspension being tuned for leisure and comfort, it does feel pretty nice. Also, the larger tire size, yes, when you start getting at around 65, 70 miles an hour, you do get some of that road noise, but honestly, not much of a difference compared to other rivals I've experienced in this market. Another thing too to remember here is that with this being a Luxe trim, you don't get all the bells and whistles, so you miss out on the massaging seats up front for the driver and passenger. You don't have the semi-aniline leather seats, so you are missing out on some of the creature comforts. But as a mid-tier or low-tier trim, for a vehicle that starts under $60,000, it is a great value. As I wrap up this test drive, the main takeaway though is that Turbo 4. For a lot of you who love the V6 in the QX60, I think you're going to miss it. I think tears will be shed. For those of you who are now new to this market, that are seeing a lot more Turbo 4s make its way in the midsize crossover market, I still think this is a great choice. I really do. It has the intangibles of being a family-friendly 3-row, has the practicality, has the comfort, has the features, has the technology. While you will have to get used to this vehicle performing at its best in mid-range at around 3,000 RPM, as a daily commuter, as a family hauler, as a road trip vehicle, I still think it fares quite well in this market. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video for the 2025 Infiniti QX60 Luxe. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.